Welcome to another episode of Elephant in the Room, Black Empowerment. I'm your host, Maya In Situ. Those were some strong words coming from Malcolm X, our deified ancestor. Can you think about the time when Malcolm X was coming up and understand what kind of interesting struggle he found himself in? If you ever had an opportunity to read his autobiography, you would know that uh, his struggle was great from the beginning. Let's see here. I'm pausing for a second. Make sure everything is everything. So his father, who was a pastor, struggled with the Jim Crow South, and Malcolm later went on to continue that struggle. Unbeknownst to him, he went through a whole lot of other changes. But I'm not really one for necessarily critiquing um, Brother Malcolm's struggle. I'm just one for kind of looking at the uh, importance of their life. I guess is what I like to look at more. I like to understand um, the realization of the time in which they were living and understand the kind of choices that they had to make based upon their backs being up against the wall and them feeling like they had to speak out in a particular way. So today's topic is Hater Nation, stemming off of our multiculturalism talk last week and kind of understanding um, the struggles that we face against one of our greatest foes of all time. You all may think you understand the direction I'm going in, but if we're going to talk about how we learn about our history and we want to make it relate to who we are today, and we want to transcend it into actual resolutions to problems, then we have to begin to look at who the true enemy may be. Now, before I get into that, I want to tell you all I had a great day today. I am kicking this virus down and I'm getting back to my normal self. And I feel pretty good, actually. My voice is still a little bit off, but I feel good. I feel pretty darn good. So I'm looking at this and trying to do an update here. It's not working in favor. Um, so a couple things I jotted down as notes was I'm looking at this growing movement because I am on social media and I do somewhat entertain myself by social media. But um, I really use it as a tool to be able to understand the climate, understand where we are as a people, what our thoughts are on things, who's here, who's where, there. And we've already discussed that we're not necessarily a monolithic people. We don't think with one pulse, as some other cultures may seem to do. And that is for the good and for the bad. And so when I am trying to understand our struggle and offer solutions, they're my perceived solutions. They're not necessarily perfect. Uh, they're a perception. They're one way to look at it. And so when I'm looking at some plausible solutions to some of our greater issues, I keep coming back to one place. And that one place I keep coming back to is us being our worst enemy, our own selves, the inability to project inward, but we choose to project outward. And so today I'm going to spend some time bringing up some examples. I started off with Brother Malcolm because I feel Malcolm was a great example um, of a person who struggled with his own understanding and his own thoughts about who he wanted to be as an individual and that growth that he had to discovering other things along the way. And so it's just very interesting the pathway that became his life. That in a lot of ways he died a martyr. Um, there's just so many things you could talk about with Brother Shabazz Al-Hash. Um, it's almost a point where you just kind of get quiet, like I just did, and you think to yourself about the proper words because you want to honor the ancestor and not shed a negative light on him. Um, I've been out here looking at young brothers coming up in the conscious movement and how they've chosen to situate their arguments. And I've watched other brothers who I deem as more mature, more wise, try to come back and correct some of those misconceptions, misconstrued information, half baked. Um, it's just really sad, right? Once people pass, you don't have that other witness, that other testimony. You just have interpretations of their life and what they meant by this and what they were saying by that. There's no rebuttal, you know. That is the greatest loss ever, that there's no rebuttal to the information that they're trying to provide. So let me unveil so we can talk to each other. I am in my creation. I am in my garage. I decided I want to change my environment. And I want to come outside, but the mosquitoes are out. It's not in the afternoon like I wanted it to be. I actually went to uh the rodeo today and I had a great time. And I want to show you this fun video before we got into the seriousness of it. If I can get this darn thing to play because I've been trying to learn how to play my videos on this mechanism. And the mosquitoes are still out in the garage, so I am going to quickly, before I get this started, spray a barrier around me of off. Poor Angel. Now I know what you go through out here. I'm gonna have to help you out with that, sister girl. I had one just come on me and try to get me. I'm in Texas. I know y'all somewhere else. Y'all like, wait a minute, mosquitoes. If you somewhere else where the climate has not yet caught up. I am in Texas, and Texas is 75%. It's sprayed too much. 75% hot and 10% cold. The other 25% is whatever direction the wind blows. So anyway, the woes of my new environment. What did I tell y'all? Look, this one is just like, oh, you got me. I'm sorry, you got to go bye bye. So my little man Raider won me a stuffy animal. So he's gonna be good with the ladies, right? We'll see. And he won a bigger one. It's pretty good. He won a bigger one for me. I'm happy about that. I brought the ancestors out here with me. Representation of the ancestors. Does everyone understand the importance of honoring your ancestors? I don't think we all do. I think that is a lost art to some of us to honor our ancestors. Got this from the rodeo. That's a goodness. I don't think a lot of us understand to honor our ancestors. We are at a loss for what that means. Um, so I'm gonna get into that because I think that's part of our problem of knowledge of self is that we don't understand the value of our elders, of our ancestors. We think that when we come into information that means that we're supposed to dismantle what's already there instead of um, expanding upon and making better the information that we learn as a building block. Instead, we seek to tear down because there's this ego that is playing a role in us. And, some of these brothers may feel, and sisters, I see it with the brothers more, and I think part of the problem is there's not balance in the community. There's brothers out in the front, and they're giving all the information, and they're doing what men tend to do when they're around each other. They grandstand, they set trip, they really seek to annihilate and destroy each other. And unfortunately, because of this Willie Lynch syndrome and colonialism and manifest destiny that has been bestowed upon us over centuries at this point, if not more or longer than that, if we really want to trace history, um, we'll find out why we are so antagonistic towards each other and our ancestors. We'll find out that deeper than those biblical roots that we like to talk about, you know, um, when you don't respect your parents, basically that there is a curse that will come upon you for not respecting your elders. Even worse than that, even deeper than that, is there becomes this generational behavior syndrome that comes from it that um, teaches our youngsters that belligerence, boisterousness, um, boastfulness, being egotistical, selfishness, um, the need to be right all the time, begins to take over. And we don't approach this information that I've seen and been studying for a while now. We don't approach this information with a certain humbleness. It's like, oh, I've got it, or I figured it out, or I know that math equation, and get on the board with your chalk and you start writing, and you don't consider, number one, your audience, and number two, you don't consider um, those who came before you. Even more importantly than that, it's very disturbing. I watched Brother Ali Muhammad, um, who is an educated brother, and I watched him wisely navigate through the waters of what's transpired over this last week, which is one brother's uh, voyage to take down the Nation of Islam. I suppose he thinks single handedly through information. And without consideration to who this organization has been, and without consideration to what their current works are, and more importantly than all of those things, without consideration to the causal effect that it would have on us as a nation, as what we like to call black, as what we like to call the conscious community, as what we like to call those who have taken on the torch to try to shed information between each other, and yes, dispel the myths, but dispel the myths in a way that is beneficial to us. So if you come upon some information that maybe a elder of yours has given to you, and you're their protege, and this particular elder might have their own agenda as to why they're doing what they're doing. And maybe you jive with that agenda. Maybe that agenda makes sense to you too. But do you believe that any one person ever tells you everything about themselves or everything about what their motives are? Do we really believe that the people that we serve and respect necessarily disposes of all the information that's inside of here? There's a certain human dynamic that is protective, and we never really share everything with anyone. Sometimes we have very deep, dark secrets that we keep to ourselves. Things that either are so embarrassing or so damning that we'd rather not tell anyone. And so when we decide to follow people into um, a certain uh, ideology, we are basically saying that we accept the information that they're providing, we respect it, and we believe in it. And so, someone's trying to scare me. And so I think that has to be taken into consideration um, when we are choosing to follow someone or be a disciple or provide information. When you are not choosing to stand on your own 2 feet and you are relying on others' information, um, and you're being someone else's disciple, do you really understand what that means? Do you really understand what their motives are, what their history, what their trials and tribulations are, um, why they have the convictions that they have? So I'm not really being specific except for those that I feel I appreciate their message and appreciate what it is that they're out here doing or trying to convey or trying to get across. But that's just something I wanted to share about, this seeming movement to dismantle the Nation of Islam, because of, personal reasons or spiritual reasons or personal vendettas. I always ask this one question, and I always ask, um, it's not whether you can do something, it's more rather should you do something? What are the angles? What are the benefits? Unfortunately, with this YouTube um, webcasting with commercials and earning potential, it changes the nature and the genuine uh, motives behind why some people behave in the manners in which they do. Money changes everything. And we live in a world that relies on money. Money is the commerce. It is the way in which we exchange, it's the way in which we live, it's the way in which we survive. Money dictates what you can and can't do. And so it's my belief that because of this dynamic, that money has become one of our greatest foes, but it is not the ultimate foe. The ultimate foe is even greater than that, and we will get to it. So, to kind of take a pause from that, this unfortunate turn of events that is currently going on, in my intro, I just wanted to kind of touch lightly on that. But I want to kind of bounce back and forth because I'm really in a good mood today. I'm in a very especially good mood today. And I want to share this fun video I did earlier with you all. Um, and I'm hoping that I'm able to play it on here. Let me see if it'll just let me simply grab it off of here. Let me see. Let's see if I can grab it off of here. Let's see if I can grab it off of here and play it. One, two. Let's see if I can get it to play here. Had a lot of fun at the rodeo today. As you see, I'm wearing my rodeo judger's hat. Not sure how much I judged, but um, it was fun. My son and I, we enjoyed ourselves. My youngest son and I, we really enjoyed ourselves. And I just love moments like that because it really takes away from all of that. Let's see if I can get this to come up so you all can see my experience. Let's see if I can get this to come up for me. This is like the hardest screen to get to. I hope you all can hear this. I've been wondering if you can hear these things. I hope so. My voice comes across just fine, but I don't know if you can hear some of this commentary in here. If not, you can go to my Twitter page and watch it later. I give you all access through my elephantintheroom.us page. You can watch some of these videos. I think sometimes Twitter doesn't really restrict you. It was such the weirdest thing sitting up there like that. Waiting for the Ferris wheel to come down. It was pretty mind boggling. Excuse me. I need to figure out why you can't hear the voices on here when I play this. So there used to be a time where you could hear. I'm I feel like I'm watching a silent movie. Now that's done. I'm trying to see if that audio came through, which is so weird. I couldn't remember which way I did it the other way around. But it played in some of the other frames. Maybe it's just not playing in real time for me. But anyway, that was a lot of fun going there and experiencing that. Let me just make sure my voice is still on for this later. I'm trying to do this weird dynamic with the audio. Make sure it's coming through. A little late for me. I've been out and about all day. I missed the baby shower co-worker because my butt lost my phone. That was a nightmare. But dig this, right? So I lost my phone, right? And I'm very thankful that I found it. I'm thankful for the individual. But okay, this what happened, right? We going in between my son playing for the prizes that he won me. And the you have to go, re-up on tickets or whatever so you can go play the games. And so they give you this little ticket that they can scan and they can get the money off of it and you play your game. And so I went to do that, went back. I remember having my phone. I must have set it down on the counter while we were playing. And as we walked away, I hadn't walked very far and I said, oh, I left my phone. I went back. And of course, it was gone. And I was like really concerned, like, oh my God, somebody took my phone. I don't have time for this. Boo. Right. But my son reminds me that we can Google search for my phone. And so we upload our Google, his Google's on my phone and my Google's on my phone. So he used his Google through his phone and he said, locate my phone. And it immediately recognized my phone number, my phone, my Galaxy. And so when he went to ping for it, it was in the same spot. But the way it was looking like it was out in the parking lot. I'm like, oh my, no, oh my God, they're trying to go out to the parking lot. So I'm like, let's head that way. And so we start heading that way, and I'm looking, and it's still staying still. I'm like, this is so weird. So stopping the lost and found to see if it's there, and it's not. I have my son sit down in, the Reliant Arena area, and I go out and I go back to the area where I'm at because it's literally not moving. Like it's in one place. I'm pinging it. I'm making it call itself and all that. Okay, so I'm not hearing no voice, so this not working. I have to tell the story again. Somebody's trying to spook me. Okay, so my bad, y'all. So I had it reversed, but for some reason the audio is not playing on this other side. So I'm gonna tell my story again. All right. So anyway, I lost my phone today, and freaking, you go put money on the little card thingy and you pay for it. They put the little money on the little ticket thing. You go to the counter and you play whatever games you want to play. So I set my phone down there, but I walked away and remember, oh God, I left my phone. Let me look for it because we are about to leave out. And I went back and it was gone. I mean, literally it was within minutes. It wasn't even that long. And so when I went back, my son reminded me that he had Google, and with the Google services, you can find your phone, right? And so I have his Google on my phone. I have my Google Gmail login on my phone. So we have both of ours. So he went through his phone and started searching for my phone, right, using the Google Maps application. And so when I put find my phone, um, it was pinging for the same location where we were at, and we were asking the people at the counter, like, "Hey, is it over here?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, that's so weird, right? And so um, I come back and it's weird. It's like, nah, I don't have any sound. Technical difficulties. Sorry, I gotta refresh. Sorry, I had to refresh y'all. Make it come back. Person got kicked out. Come back. Sorry. I can't hear anything. Boo. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, we're gonna try this story one more time. All right. So anyway, I saw my video. You probably couldn't hear the audio. It's the weirdest thing in the world. I don't know what's going on with this audio thing. I'm gonna have to figure it out. But anyway, so I lost my phone, right? Um, I got a backpack. We're moving in between the concession stands, paying, add money, going to where we want to go. And so we ended up at this one place where we won our little prizes. And so I know I set my phone down. I remember doing it, but I didn't pick it back up when we walked away. Minutes later, I came back. It wasn't very far. We just walked away, came back. So I went there. I asked to pay, um, the person that I just, did business with, they see my phone. They were like, no. So my son remembered that he can go onto Google Maps and locate my phone. And so he did that. And so, being a little genius that he is. And so it was pinging right at the same location. It hadn't moved. And I was like, this is so weird. And so I called it, I rang it. We looking around, we sweating. Literally an hour goes by. We'd have been to the Lost and Found. We'd have been to the information booth. Nobody's turned this phone in. And so we just keep calling it. There's even a response on there where it shows you where the person silenced the ringer when you make it ring out loud. And so I'm like, I know someone has this phone. And so I went back to that concession area like two, three times. I even talked to the lady inside of the booth where I purchased from. I'm like, between these two, someone has to have this phone. And so the lady, she was nice. She came out of the booth eventually on my third try, and we're sitting there talking. I did talk to people and lost the found, and they gave me their card. Like, if turn up, will call you. And I'm just like, really like, because I'm paying a stupid insurance fee, and I'm just so annoyed with it, right? And so I go back and I'm lifting up their little things, their little rafters that they have around and trying to pull it up, their little banner. I'm like, it's got to be here somewhere. And I'm asking the manager, and the manager's like, I don't know. And they're all like, I don't know. And so when I'm talking to the lady from the booth that I paid to, get the ticket to play at the different concession areas, she says, I'm a police officer, and this happened with kids at school. A kid will pick their phone, they know it's there and someone to have it. I'm like, I know it doesn't make sense. I don't understand why they want to keep it. I mean, nowadays it's really hard to use anybody else's phones. It's just not happening. And so I I went ahead and asked them again one more time, and the gentleman walks up, tall dude. I don't know what his ethnicity was. Probably, maybe, I don't know. He looked Iranian or something like that. He wasn't Hispanic, he wasn't Asian per se, but he was like Iranian, right? Which could be Asian. But anyway, so um, so he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I turned it in," and I'm looking at him like, I done asked y'all so many times, and everybody's like, "No, I'm asking every single employee now." I'm like pinging it while I'm asking them, like ping, ping, mm, ping, 'Cause I'm like, dude, I know one of y'all got this phone. Just give it up. I don't even care. Like, I'm not gonna tell nothing. Just give me my phone. That's all I care about. And so he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I turned it in to the people over at the concession stand." I'm like, everybody that asked everybody up in here, which is composed of Hispanics, black kids, white kids. They just all up in here together, and that's Houston, right, for you. I'm like, everybody that asked y'all, is it here? Here come you. Oh yeah, I turned it in the concession stand. So I'm like, all right. So I go to the first information booth, which listen, this is another investigative report type of thing. When I go to this particular information booth, I went there. That's the first place I went to see if someone turned the phone in before I went to Lost and Found in the bigger building. They said no, no one had turned it in yet. I'm like, all right. So when I walk back up, I'm pinging the phone and they looking at it and they look at me. I'm like, that's my phone. And she's like, oh yeah, we were trying to answer and we were trying to let respond to you. We couldn't respond and wouldn't let us respond. I'm like, that's cool. It's mine. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I go back and tell the nice lady who said she was a police officer who had been watching me walking back and forth and just looking around like I'm crazy for my phone. And she's like, it's not here, this place. And I would see if it was right here. And I can't see this part, but I would see it. So I said, I got it. She was like, I knew it had to be over there. That didn't make any sense. I said, thank you so much. I said, the young man turned it in. She kind of looked at me and I was like, and so I went back over to the young man. I went into my purse and I was going to give him a couple of dollars because in my mind, I'm like, I would have spent a whole lot more money to replace my phone. I could at least compensate this gentleman for doing the right thing. Right. And he was like, oh, no, 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 I can't take the money. I was like, okay, no problem. I just, I would have paid more for this phone. So I just want to tip you. And he was like, no, 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 I can't take the money. I don't want to be all like accusing nobody, right? But what I'm saying is the whole gist of the story doesn't make sense. I think because I was being so persistent, we were pinging the phone, we weren't going nowhere, we was not letting it go. I think they got a little nervous, went ahead and turned the damn phone in. But I think they was gonna keep that bad boy because it is a waterproof phone with a waterproof case. And I do have a bad habit of leaving my phone, places. I'll set things down, keys, I do these things. I call it mommy brains, but some mommies don't have this issue, so I can't really blame that. So it's my fault. But I'm thankful that I got it back. That was like a good ending, But I don't know, it's a little suspect. That's all I'm saying. It's a little suspect, right? But I don't know. I don't know. I kind of like my hat. Maybe I will wear my hat. Kind of like it. It's kind of cool, isn't it? Was it kind of dope, y'all? It's kind of dope. So anyway, it was kind of suspect to me, but I'm like, just let it go. Let go, Maya. Be thankful you got it. Don't be blaming nobody. Although everybody and their mama, Jesus, everybody was mad. Everybody was to blame. The Prophet Muhammad. It don't matter. Everybody was in trouble. Yahweh. Everybody was mad at. I was so mad. I was like, where's my vote? This is just like, losing the phone is like losing a part of your life and limb. It's unfortunate that we have come to this, but that is the reality. I was just so mad that I could not find my phone. I mean, I was blaming it on the rain, Milli Vanilli. Everybody was at fault. You know, it just didn't make no sense. Where was this damn phone? Here it is. Here's the phone. Damn it. I've been underwater with this phone. I love this phone. I don't love much of anything, but I love this phone. So anyway, y'all, let's move on, right? So I wanted to bring up this story. Speaking of the hater nation that we are becoming or have become, this particular story is talking about racism and a lot of what I just have a lot of hate in their heart. They don't love anybody. They don't love themselves. Um, and people's lives. And this unfortunate incident ruined a life permanently. As we all know, these things in Jim Crow South did. What did I do? Oh, I'm gonna set the stupid copy button when I shouldn't have. Oh, y'all. All right. So this particular story is a very sad story. You know, I don't know if you all have heard this before. This may be your first time hearing it, but I will read it to you all. So basically, it took 10 minutes to convict 14-year-old George Stinney Jr. It took 70 years after his execution to exonerate them. So this particular story on March. All right, let's pull that back up. That was weird. Okay. Oh, I see. That's kind of cool. I found out a new feature, y'all, just off GP. So I can overlay. Do y'all see it this way? No, you don't. So I'm going to have to redo that one. Let me just delete that one out. Let's try that again. I don't know how I did that. I did some whole bunch of shenanigans on this one. Hold on. Let me pull up the article for you all. All right, there we go. And acting stupid. Okay. So I'm going to read the article. Oh, do I have two? I do have two. I'm doing it. Smurf. Smurf. I need that one because we already have one. And I'm really tripping. But for some reason, this New York Times article does not, or Washington Post article does not want to act right. Let's try one more again. Let's try to copy it again. For some reason, is the older Stinney and directed their attention towards George. The younger one you keep because he's more suspicious. On June 16, 1944, he was executed, becoming the youngest person in modern times to be put to death. So there's like a whole long stream and years of fighting and petitioning to try to get this poor boy's case overturned. And of course, in those days, you got put into the. You want to talk about a speedy trial? They believed in a speedy trial, and we'll just put it that way. Speedy in the wrong way. He was questioned in a small room alone, without his parents, without an attorney. Gideon versus Wainwright was quoted here. It's the landmark Supreme case guaranteeing the right to counsel wouldn't be decided until 1963, so he had no rights being under that. Police claimed the boy confessed to killing Betty June Benneker, 11, and Mary Emma Thames, 8. Rest their little souls. It's unfortunate. And it says he admitted to wanting to have sex with Betty. He's 14, so I'm telling what they said to him. They rushed him to trial after a 2-hour trial and a 10-minute jury deliberation. Stinney was convicted of murder on April 24th and sentenced to die by electrocution. According to a book by Mark R. Jones, at the time, 14 was the age of criminal responsibility. His lawyer, a local political figure, chose not to appeal. Stinney's initial trial, the evidence or lack of it, and speed with which he was convicted seemed to illustrate how a young black boy was railroaded by an all-white justice system. During the one-day trial, the defense called few or no witnesses. There was no written record of confession. Today, most people who could testify are dead, and most evidence is long gone. New facts in the case prompted Circuit Judge Carmen Mullen to vacate his conviction on Wednesday, 70 years after Stinney's execution. Sounds the same like with the accuser of what's the poor baby that came down from Chicago, went down south, whistled at the white woman. I'll think of his name in a minute. I know it, but it's overwhelming sometimes for the conscience. I can think of no greater injustice than a violation of one's constitutional rights, which has proven to me in this case, Mullen wrote. The case has haunted the town since it happened. Really? Or the town is who we have to worry about? But garnered new attention when historian George Frierson, a local school board member raised in Stinney's hometown, started studying it some years ago.
Since then, Stenny's former cellmate issued a statement saying the boy denied the charges. I didn't do it. Wilford Hunter and Stenny told him, he said, why would they kill me for something I didn't do? That was a baby. The mindset of young men were a little bit different. They were more responsible, but overall, all in all, he was still a baby. I look at my 13-year-old son to be this year, and if he get questioned by the police, he might tell him any damn thing. Who knows? If it's this kind of circumstance, who knows what he might admit to? Who knows? You know, when you're being coerced by grown men into testifying for something that you didn't do, which is very common in this country. In 2009, an attorney planned to file statements from Stenny's family members, but waited because he heard a man in Tennessee who was not related to Stenny could offer an alibi for the youth. The man never came forward. It reportedly delayed the new trial, but didn't stop it. South Carolina still recognizes George Stenny as a murderer. Defense attorney Matt Burgess told CNN earlier this year, we felt that something needed to be done. New details started to emerge. Stenny's family claimed his confession was coerced and that he had an alibi. That was never heard. The alibi was his sister, now Amy Ruffner, 77. Can you imagine being his sister? His sister who, she's a child herself, scared to death. She went to hide because she knew when those laws was coming and those white men were coming at those days and age that they were not coming to be your friend. They were not your friend. The law was not your friend. This is the history of African people in this country and law enforcement. And you can't get these boneheaded people to understand, listen, or even reason with the fact that these kind of things and experiences on more than one occasion, more than two, more than three, more than enough to count, are why our people have no trust for law enforcement. We don't care what color you are. If you are in law enforcement, you are one of them in a lot of cases. And it's unfortunate, but it is a reality. It is the elephant in the room. She says she was with him at the alleged time of the crime, watching their family's cow graze near some railroad tracks by their house when the two girls rode over on their bicycles. They said, hey, could you tell us where you can find some maypops? Ruffner remembered them saying, according to WLTX TV, we said no, and they went on about their business. Simple, easy peasy. Stenny was accused of murdering the girls while they picked wildflowers. These people are grown. His mom is, I believe his mom is passed. Stenny's family fled their home. His brother Charles, who's now in his 80s, said in a statement they never came forward because they were terrified. White people in those days were domestic terrorists. Whether we like it or not, whether you want to excuse Uncle Bob and them for their behaviors, this is who a lot of them were. And if they were not actively being terrorists, they were cell terrorists waiting for their instructions and opportunity to inflict terror on the blackies, on those that they did not consider human beings equal to them or deserving of human behavior. You did have whites that did not participate in that, but you had a lot of complacent whites, which is our problem to this day. The complacency and the denial of the facts of the history of what we are still going through is why we argue on TV and political commentaries, and why we still have these arguments so many years later, and why some of our own people suffer from Stockholm syndrome, so much so that they think that they identify with the oppressive nature and behavior of whites in this country who choose to behave in this manner. George's conviction and execution was something my family believed could happen to any of us in the family. Therefore, we made a decision for the safety of the family to leave it be. Charles Stenny wrote in his sworn statement, I have to look at these people every day that killed their child, their family member. Early this year, the case picked up speed. At a hearing in January, Stenny's family demanded a new trial. Mona heard a testimony for Stenny's brothers and sisters, a witness from the search party that discovered the bodies, and experts who challenged Stenny's confession. A child forensic psychiatrist testified this week that Stenny's confession should have never been trusted. Hindsight is 2020. It is my professional opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that the confession given by George Stenny Jr. on or about March 24, 1944 is best characterized as coerced, compliant, false confession, Amanda Sales told the court. According to NBC News, it is not reliable. Still, some argue Stinney's admission of guilt. The article just goes on to talk about all these handwritten statements. I'll put it up, of course, for you all. I always do. It's just 84 after the girl's death, he was sent to the electric chair. He was barely 5 feet tall. He was not 100 pounds. The electric chair strap were too big for his frail body. Newspapers at the time report he had to sit on books to reach the headpiece. And when the switch was flipped, the convulsions knocked down the large mask, exposing his tearful face to the crowd. The historian that dug up his case said the family never wanted a pardon. A pardon means that there is guilt, the person did it, and they just want forgiveness, right? There's a difference. A pardon is forgiving someone for something they did. Norma Robinson, George Stinney's niece, told the Manning Times, that wasn't an option for my mother, my aunt, or my uncle. We weren't asking forgiveness. Instead, they sought what's called a writ of coram nobis. It means, in essence, mistakes were made. What a mistake. And that is the end of the article. There are many more articles about this young man and the attempt to vacate, to get rid of this type of thing. And so that's the news. That's during the week since we last talked. So what are we dealing with here? We're dealing with uh, we're dealing with a hater nation outside of the community. And more importantly, we're dealing with a hater nation inside of our community. And that's what I'm going to focus on. I have a million examples of hater nation outside of our community. We know this, we know these things happen. There's no surprise of all this, unfortunately. What I want to talk about more extensively is the oppressor's behavior reincarnated in ourselves. We have become our oppressor. I will continue to remind us of this until we learn not to be our oppressor. When we learn to be our greatest ally. So I want to turn to my Twitter feed. I'm going to read you some things because Twitter is a battleground. And Twitter is a lot more tolerant than Facebook as far as freedom of speech. You have to be very egregious in order to be turned away from Twitter as a Twitter offender. Um, I choose not to curse. I choose not to. Uh, I choose not to use foul language. I choose not to assault. I choose not to threaten. I choose to inflict knowledge, but I want you to hear one of my probably most belligerent. So, in response to this article and feed, I put that my comments on this day. It says the youngest individual ever executed in America. So small, they had to sit him on telephone books. And so I'm trying to remember what it's going to show me. I'm trying to find one of the commentary that was on here that pissed me off when I saw it. Oh, I know. I got to go in here and I'll find it because I responded to it. So the original caption says George Stinney Jr., 14 years old, the youngest individual ever executed in America. KKK. I like it when we spell it that way because that's exactly what it is. So small they had to sit him on telephone books to fit in the electric chair. Exonerated 70 years later. So my comments to that were my ass. He is dead. He cannot be exonerated on this earth. Heathens. The ancestors had you, little one. Poor baby must have been terrified by those terrorists. The pain caused. Never forget. People use it to build. That was my feeling on that day. It's probably one of the most egregious things I put on here. But I want to give you some examples of when people post, right? Like Tariq Nasheed, I follow him. And, there's things that he puts down. And uh, they, you have a lot of hateful people. He's a good example of hateful people. And people say racism doesn't exist in America. We are over that. You have Barack Obama, Barack Obama. Okay. So Minister Farrakhan put the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to me, if the enemy took out a full page ad in the New York Times and cursed me out word for word and line by line, they will only help me. As it is with my teacher, so it is with me. So let's just go look at the comments. You would think, true brother, true. These people are very hateful. They're awful. Things like that. And as you go through the comments, there's some good ones to start off, right? But as we go down and go down, it's almost like you cannot get past. I wonder, do they monitor theirs? Because sometimes I don't see any negative on the minister's page. Arabic, I can't read that. I probably can translate it. Let's translate from Arabic. See what our Arabic brothers are saying. Oh, something encouraging. So, of course, it usually gets into a point where someone posts something interesting. Okay, so here we go. Someone comes on and they put something and it changes the whole dynamic. So, Raymond Dilworth decides to say, I worked around white folks all my life and I noticed that they do not talk or argue about religious. I'm just going to read exactly what he put. They do not speak Jesus' name. They don't wear crosses. They just sit back and watch blacks argue about Jesus. Why is that? So people chose to ignore him. It's pretty good. So the minister's having a good effect. But let's go. There's many more examples where that came from. We can go on Tariq Nasheed's page and to prove everything what I'm saying. It's so interesting, which he does say a lot of controversial things. I'm not saying like the brothers are innocent, but I do find it very interesting why people will follow someone that they don't agree with. I don't agree with you. I don't subscribe to what you subscribe to, so I don't find a reason to follow you. And you will find people on here that to be not disturbing, but just baiting. And so I try to use one word liners to um, or something very short, which Twitter's pretty genius. They only allow you to put about 21 characters or words on here. And so I think that's purposely done so they don't have to, you don't have these long books, you don't have this heckling going on. It's just, say what you're going to say, move on. Okay, get your grade and move on. And that's generally another one is Talib Kweli. He, let's go on his page. Oh, he really battles. His page is pretty rough. He really battles he attracts white supremacist groups. Literally, he's like a magnet, and they love coming on his page. He has 1.15 million followers. He follows about 8,508 people that he admires. And he's got about 309,000 tweets. So he gets busy, okay? So here goes one from a cat named T-Bone, right? So if I follow their thread and look at what they've been talking about. So, and it usually ends in the tweet is gone. It's like you can't even get to this stuff because the tweet is gone because they start calling him, nigger this and nigger that. And before you know it, it's like it's gone. So, and the people usually take their tweets down once he exposes them. So, Talib Police says only someone sympathetic to the oppressor would ask a member of the oppressed class to prove that oppression exists. Skeptic, my ass, you're just a racist. So the guy T Bone says, you've proven no oppression. There is no oppressor to be sympathetic to. This is not a Marxist fairyland where you can just call people oppressors without any proof. I'm not a rape sympathizer. If I want proof before punishing Emmett Till. What? So, of course, people respond to them, but I just want y'all to hear some of the logic that comes out of these people's mouths that are on Twitter, that are part of the Twitter community. People often refer to Black Twitter as far as people on Twitter who are fighting these things, but um, you just got a lot of hateful things out here from people. So that was one thing. Prove oppression. That's the theme. Okay, this is why this is called Hater Nation. Our nation is so hateful that we don't even see ourselves anymore. So him and T Bone were going at it for a while. So he responds to this other guy. He says, let's focus on the here and now, the reality for whites and blacks in America. Crime statistics prove whites are of no threat to blacks in every category of crime. Yet blacks pose a serious threat to whites in all major crime categories. So Talib simply says, you're not in charge. You don't need, you don't get to decide what I focus on. Oh boy. So T-Bone goes on to say, exactly, the burden of proof is the one making a positive claim. If someone claims something exists, they must provide non-anecdotal proof that things exist. So some other guy says, in order for what Talib says, that's how long white supremacists have been murdering innocent black people. That's why we can go so far back. Stop crying to Jay Wokus. Jay Wokus says, laugh out loud. You have to go all the way back to the early 1900s, for example, of whites murdering blacks. Meanwhile, white people continue to get robbed, raped, and murdered by blacks on a daily basis. Who's really the victims here? Just trying to paint a picture of mentality. The hater nation we live in. The hater nation we live in. This is Twitter, okay? This is Twitter. There's no racism, right? So here's another one. And we're not going to even talk about people who come on here whose grammar and spelling is atrocious. I mean, I've made some spelling typos, but these people really uh, take the cake. Let's get to the more violent ones because he doesn't necessarily take all the ones down. He just takes down the ones who they're really trying to have some white people come on here that are ashamed of what they see here. Let's see. What's one more? It's this one character, Deb. Deb comes on and tries to elicit her logic, and Deb gets linguistically attacked all the time. There's one I saw here. I wanted to. I'm gonna pass that one. Let's see. I'll go on my notification because there's plenty there that I respond to too. It's exhausting, guys, honestly. But anyway, those are just examples. I mean, you can go onto my Twitter page. There's a link from my page, elephantintheroom.us, if you want to see what I have to say to people and the things I make people realize. I mean, people try to argue on whether we're Africans are from Egypt. Egypt's not in Africa. All these kind of silly, insane arguments that just make you think, wow, the world's really in trouble because there are people on here in hordes and they are swarming. But what I really want to get into was not that we don't know that this so-called white supremacist movement is out, but more so to get to the meat and potatoes of our behavior towards each other. How we are the biggest haters. There's a brother, Sonnet. I've talked about him before, and he's on YouTube as well. SANETER, Sonetta. And he's a good brother. He's kind of like he likes to call himself the oh, why am I forgetting the name? Boxing. I'm tired, y'all. I'm not even thinking straight. Um, I took Google. It's ridiculous. I shouldn't have to Google that. I know the dude's name with the wild hair. It's sad. Don King. Okay, the Don King of YouTube. He figures of the conscious community. He helped found or did found the House of Consciousness. There's a lot of work that he does in the community, and his aim, which sometimes they get on my nerves every now and again because of some of the stuff that they do and some of the stuff, promotes consciousness. He promotes debates between the conscious community, between the different sexes. Obviously, like I said, we're not monolithic. You have the Moors, you have the Hebrew Israelites, you have the Kemetic scholars and Kemetic scientists and Kemetic spiritual folks. You have I'm forgetting people more, super Israelites, Jamaican, Cuban. You just have a lot of different people he's brought into the fold, and he's been doing this a really long time. And what his debates try to do is it tries to create a narrative between the different groups and figure out why are we so separated and why can't we agree on one thing, and that is a movement towards financial stability and a movement towards um, getting us to work together. And what I've noticed, because he has an award show that's coming up, he has a Patreon page in which you can contribute if you so choose to, if you're so moved to. And he basically have been dealing with lately a lot of people who have been coming in creating fake profiles under his name, and they've been really upset that he's collecting this money. And so they've been asking him, receipts show that you are, collecting this money, showing you are a true person of your word. Which, I mean, since I've been following the brother, I haven't seen anything wrong with what he's doing. I don't see him being a problem. I don't see him as a thief. I don't see any of that. And so you got a lot of people challenging his authenticity and his movement and what he's trying to do. What he's trying to do right now, he has an award show in New York. I've been thinking about on wanting to go. I want to go, not only to promote, my business ventures, but also, to become more involved in the part of community, rub elbows with some people who've been in this, who've been structuring themselves and the do's and the don'ts, and, just kind of getting some good information from people on, what to do to help our people. Because I'm really becoming very passionate about that. This is a grassroots movement for me, and I want this to be something that is a part of my life because I don't feel like I can really sit still anymore, which is why I do my show, just to put out some information, get minds curious. Maybe some people are thinking like, man, I knew it. I knew this wasn't all the information it was, and they could begin to move on their journey, just to help anyone that I can. I'm not really looking to be the authority on anything. I don't feel like I've done enough studying to just be a scholar on it, but I do have enough information to share with people so that they can begin to take their own journey and understand what it is that you believe in, which is why I will have the spiritual show every 10th show, every fifth, counting 5, 5, 10, 50, 20, every fifth show, because I want us to begin to ask questions. I don't think we ask enough questions. I think that's how people have gotten away with things over us. And things go so far that when we finally figure out what's happening, we feel like, wow, why didn't I see the signs before? Why didn't I notice this was going on? I think it's important for us, excuse me, to begin to see these things. Okay. And so that's my motivation. And so he has the Sonetta TV awards coming up. He's been doing his TV show. He's been having different personalities on. These different personalities branch out. They have their own website, their own page. They have their own followers, and they have lots of followers. Some of them are in the thousands. As far as people who follow and follow what they're talking about, follow their information, and they rely on them for information. And so, of course, with this kind of responsibility, with this kind of knowledge comes great responsibility. And a lot of them are headed by some of the elders in the community. Some of them have been under the following or the apprenticeship of like personalities like James Small and historians like James Small. Um, I just watched some older, you know, film of James Smalls, and he was a very handsome brother, very dynamic, very prolific, very sure of his information, very confident. Because at the time that he was talking about some of these things, it wasn't popular, like John Henry Clark, like Dr. Ben, like Dr. Booker T. But Booker T renamed himself to Dr. Kabahai Wafa Kamene. They're running a comedic wisdom school with Philippe Matthews, who does the Philippe Matthews Shock Show. So all of these people are interconnected, and they're all different arms of the octopus, all doing their different jobs. Trying to bring our community together, and it's the darndest hardest thing to do. When you have twerking videos up to compete with and fight videos up to compete with, and our people are saying, "What's wrong with us?" That's what's wrong with us. We are becoming a hater nation. We are becoming our oppressors' children, not the other way around. They are our children gone wayward. We are the original man, if you want to look at it from that aspect. But these people have gotten so out of control and so far away from us and our teachings and our spiritual belief systems that we can't tell heads from our heads from our tails anymore, because we've been lied to for so much. If anybody's ever dealt with a liar, you know what happens. We had one in my neighborhood. I don't like to call names, but the one in my neighborhood, it don't matter how many lies you caught this person up in, they would keep lying and they would not stop. And it got to the point where people just distance themselves from them, saying, "I just know they be lying. I can't trust hardly nothing they saying." You know, and that stemmed from a lot of different things that I know about that individual. But the point is that when people lie, which has been the premise, the playbook of um, this white supremacist movement, this manifest destiny, um, this colonization effort that has taken over the world. Um, One of the things that they talked about was sticking to code, and that's one thing that Brother Tariq Nasheed has been on lately. Is he's the maker of the Hidden Colors series. Is we don't stay on code. We constantly let others detour us from the message and from those who have helped us get into position to become better. What we do is we turn on them, which is why this conflict that's going on with the Nation of Islam and this other brother, and I'm not going to even give him name notoriety because he's a fool to me. He is doing a lot of things that are foolish, unfortunately. And because I am a grown woman with a 20-something-year-old son, I can say these things because I see it clear as day. With raising men, with seeing them in your household and seeing how they can stray and seeing how they can make decisions that are absolutely boneheaded and they will not listen to anyone. And sometimes, unfortunately, some of these knuckleheads have been in the prison system before, not knocking our brothers who've been in the prison system who have made better themselves. You can follow Brother Polite's story. He's not even that person that he was before, but he had a struggle for him to get to where he is. There are brothers that have struggled with that, especially considering the mass incarceration rates and the purposeful, meaningful way that um, the white dominant culture has, portrayed these things. We know that not all of our brothers that went to prison necessarily deserved to go to prison or couldn't have gotten a second chance around because they were wayward. But the point that I'm making is some of these brothers that have been to prison and been within this prison culture have not broken those chains. They come out with that same mentality. They MF in this and F you that. And, this dude actually went on to say F Farrakhan. And it's like, it's not that Farrakhan is a god to me. I'm not a Muslim, but I respect the efforts of Farrakhan. I have read and watched with my own eyes what he has done, who he has cleaned up. The biggest example of them all was Brother Malcolm. No matter what people may say about what happened with that legacy, what did they do initially as the Muslims? And Farrakhan came after, not before. But what were they doing as the Muslims? They were clean. They were going into these prison systems. They were indoctrinating these brothers, and they were giving them some kind of hope that they meant something, that they were somebody, that they were not hopeless, that they were not nobodies, that they belonged to someone. Come to us, you belong to us. And for some brothers, they needed that because that's all they had because their mother at home on crack, or their mother had she couldn't figure out what to do with them, or the dad showing them the wrong way. I'm gonna teach you how to be a pimp. There's so many dynamics in our society of wrong teaching, and to see a brother come out and know that there's been wrong teaching and try to overthrow everything that has been built just based upon a built up ego. And that's why this YouTube thing is a curse and it's a blessing. It's both. Because some people, because they are hustlers by nature, see the hustle in everything. Everything's a hustle to them. Lives, your life, my life, their mama life, their brother life, their dog life. Everybody life is a hustle. There's no consequence. It's just, yeah, I'm big, I'm bad. I'm the God. I'm this, I'm that, and the other. I don't think they understand what being balanced is. I don't think they understand what true African spirituality is, even though they push it. You want to talk about extraterrestrials. Maybe they don't talk to us because of who we are. Maybe we're stuck on the celestial globe because of our mindset. We are so far regressed from what we had become in antiquity, the language we spoke, the spiritual walk we walked, the oneness with nature that we were. We have become a hater nation, even when we profess to be conscious. We're hating on each other. They calling it banging. I'm watching all this and I'm thinking to myself, like, how can you all not see the problem? You're trying to take a street code that you learned and you're trying to flip it and turn it into something else. And you calling it banging on each other. Yes, that's a criticism. Words matter, right? We talk about words. We talk about the etymology of words. We talk about where they come from, specifically in the English language. And when you bang on each other and you play fight, or people think you out there playing, but you fighting, but you're not fighting, but you really are fighting, we're just all we're doing is fooling ourselves. And you have brothers trying to introduce in the community scholarship, and it has worked because you have brothers that they just get on the corner and they hollering and screaming, and you watching videos from 3 and 4 and 5 years ago, and you watch the progression, and you watch the wisdom seeping in, and you watch the learning. There's one important thing that I've heard the brothers say, many of them say, no one could take credit because they've all been recycling this information. And that is, you know, now you have the knowledge, now you have the information. What are you doing with it? So, in any school of knowledge, you learn the information and then you learn application. If you don't have application, you are missing a vital source, a vital step in the process because it's just information overload at this point. If you're recycling all this cycle babble, yeah, because at this time and that time and this age and that age and they did it in this year, that's important. I'm not going to pretend that it's not. But it becomes recycled babble if you're not able to apply it. Now, some of the brothers are applying it, okay? And some of them are just looking for more YouTube hits. It's like YouTube has become an addiction for hits, an addiction for followers, an addiction for subscribers. Where is the true, genuine thirst for providing your people with the knowledge? Where is the honest, humble nature to feed your people and make them better? Do we still not believe in the concept that we're no better than our weakest link? So if someone in your own family is weak, how will you ever become strong? What do they call it? The black curse? That was that was what was I what what was I read recently? Because I did finish Trevor Noah's book recently and I loved it. I loved it. I loved what the brother had to say. He had a lot of gems in there that he was trying to give to our people. He was talking about the division and the causes of poverty and how it created a hater nation within his own nation. You know, this hater nation is serious. It's serious. It's not a joke. From hater nations, you have hater states. From hater states, you have hater communities. From hater communities, you have hater families. You have families that hate on each other. Families that the sisters would steal the other sister's man because she can. Brothers that'll put a knife in the other brother's back just because, he feel he did him wrong on a drug sale or something like that where he disrespected me. It's your brother, fool. We have fallen from grace, if I had to use a biblical term that I don't even necessarily subscribe to those things again, but to help people understand what is really going on here. My last Facebook post before they messed that page up, the people said I put out a message, and I'm sure somebody reported me because people don't like to hear the truth. The truth hurts. When I said to folks, I said, "Look, okay, we buying all these expensive purses and shoes and I already explained to you all. You're behind. The folks with the money are buying the most newest issue of a particular designer. By the time regular folks like you and I get to the fashion line, unless you're shopping in New York, unless you're shopping in LA, when this stuff first hits, you are buying secondhand merchandise that they marked down, that they intended for you, they made specifically for the masses, but the things that the wealthy have are not the same product. And so we're killing ourselves over second hand bullcrap. It's not new. If you follow Fashion Week and you look at the trends that's coming out, you're not wearing what the Fashion Week has put out. When you do the pricing on what the real movers and shakers can afford, you will wince. You can't afford it. And if you do try to afford it, you're perpetrating a lie. And if you would rather put a $3,000, $2,000, $1,500 handbag on your arm and you see your family members out here suffering and you take on the attitude, well, I can't help everybody. No, you can't help everybody, but you can help those that want the help. There are people who will hear your message and see what you have going on, and they will make good of your efforts. So you have to discern as well, pick and choose. We are living in a hater nation. We hate on everything. It's so funny because you'll have like the one woman that came out, the newscaster, and she told LeBron James to be quiet, dribble the ball. But in another breath, she'll say, "These people, they don't follow due process. They don't get involved in the political, game." You could put up a side by side video of her contradicting herself. What are your celebrities doing? They have all this money. What are they doing when they open their mouth and speak up? Shut up and go dribble the ball. Hater nation. We have become some of the most hateful people ever, and we're following suit to our oppressor. Those who wish to oppress us. I don't put that title. Nobody is oppressing me necessarily because I'm going to break free and break through. That's who I am. But if I'm going to be honest, systematically, there is oppression. There is a movement to stop ownership, to stop wealth building, to stop community building, to stop, for us to come together. That is a conscious effort among those who wish to promote that agenda. But we are no better because we're feeding into it. You have someone come out and talk about what the minister's doing. I look at it like, how dare you all? And I'm not a Muslim. How dare you all come out against him and talk about his wrongs? As if this man have never done nothing right in his life. As if he hasn't been the one standing up telling our people to wake up, do for yourself. Don't let these people tell you that you're less than. He's the one that gave you that self-esteem on Donahue speaking out against these people when they could have killed him, wanted to kill him for speaking the truth. Fight with the Jewish community over the things that they know are wrong, but they using the word anti-Semitic, knowing damn well they know what that word means. It's a game to them. Everything's a game. This is a game of chess that we are losing. If you don't believe me, get that book, The Art of War. Read it. Read it. I'll put it in my comments. Read it. Find out what your opponent is thinking. Figure out what your opponent thinks of you. And figure out what measures your opponent has taken to keep you in the position that you're in. Do you think that everywhere around this United States that you go and you see predominantly black, you see a certain condition? You think that's happenstance? You think that we share one brain and that we can't do anything any better? Or do you think that there has been a particular system set up to make you who and what you are today? Contributory factor. And then on top of that, once you learn and find out that it is set up that way, what are you doing differently to make sure that you don't fall for those pitfalls, that you don't have a young son that lands in jail, that you keep him busy enough to keep him out of trouble the most that you can, that you stick next to the man that you make a child with and see him through thick and thin. I interview a lot of older couples. I have that opportunity. And in talking to these older couples, I ask them, and they're from different races, they're not necessarily all black. And I ask them, what is the key? Which I know a sister that's coming out with a book, and when she does come out with the book, I will promote her book when it does hit the stands. But when you ask these couples what their secret to marriage is, you find out that their secret to marriage is basically not only resilience, but it's understanding and it's forgiveness more so than anything. Patience, forgiveness, understanding. Pillars. If there was to be a fourth pillar, I would say wisdom. Wisdom's always an important pillar. So patience, understanding, forgiveness, and wisdom as pillars to start off with. You build upon those blocks. If you don't have any of that, you can't have a decent relationship. You can't swing on what this person did to you when you were too immature to realize what a relationship was. You can't keep swinging on he did this, he did that, she did this, she did that. There has to be a time where you grow up. And the young man that opened his big mouth and tried to diminish the minister and the Nation of Islam, not to say that they're not without criticism, but it's a way to criticize people. But then it's so funny because when people get what they're looking for, then they want to cry out, "Oh no, don't do this, don't do that." No, you made your bed. That's the school I came from. You made your bed, you got to lie in it, and you got to face it. If wrongdoing is done, you got to face it. Our people do wrong all the time. We have misunderstandings. But the hating nation that we have become has become so egregious that it's disturbing that I don't even recognize us anymore. I remember us being a certain way as a child. I was a 70s baby. And I remember our neighborhoods being a certain way. You come out, it would be flowers all along those brick homes from Detroit, Michigan. off of the Zone A area. Just nothing but brick homes with flowers up, lawns mowed, edged, fences neat and upkept, kids' pants pulled up. You didn't curse in front of adults. You did not. These kids walk by, they don't care what comes out of their mouth. And that's because their parents don't care what comes out of their mouth in front of their children. Because our parents didn't speak a certain way about us. They didn't speak about their business in front of us. We didn't know their damn business. We didn't know nothing about it. For better or for worse. We just didn't know. Now we could have done better in financial training and planning. Yes, that's true. Teach kids what credit is, but we just wasn't all up in grown folks' business. You got these young bucks coming out, and they all up in grown folks' business. They're not even quiet enough to learn. They're so willing to prove that they know so much that they know nothing. You've learned nothing. Everything that you've read, you've literally learned nothing because you don't know how to apply the information that you've learned. That's the test. And that's why education is important. And that's why you hop, skip, and jump yourself into self education and you think you know and you don't. There's a certain decorum that comes with formal education. You want to run all over those who taking the time to do that and not end up messed up, locked up. You want to disrespect those who didn't walk that path. We all walk a different path. It's no stripes going to jail. It's a disgrace going to jail. And you want to put it behind you and you don't want to ever live that life again. It's not a badge of honor to go to jail. We need to get rid of that culture. Oh, I got locked up in. Okay, that's shameful. It's not a badge of honor. Going to jail is not a badge of honor. I don't care what anyone says. I'm not teaching my sons it, and I hope you don't teach your children it. And if they do go to jail, you teach them how to raise their head up and rise above it and put that behind them. Not put a mark on their face, a stripe on their arm, on their wrist, or any other part of their body. We wonder why we so falling behind. Look at the things we value: clothes, shoes, cars, jail. It's disgusting and it's disgraceful. Yes, I'm judging my own people because you know what? I'm raising my people. I am my people. I've had to walk walks. I've had to make hard decisions. In my own family, I've dealt with incarceration and the ramifications of it. It's not pretty. It's not glorified. It's not anything that I'm proud of or happy to say that it happened within my fold. It's not a mark of of procession. It's not something you have to go through to become anybody. It's not necessary. In fact, you need to be figuring out how to stay your asses out of there. Because all you're doing is keep hitting the reset button. Every time you go to jail, reset. So now you get people up here reading books and they think they know everything and they're not willing to go through anyone else. So the people that they're going through is just as messed up as they are, going through the same system and nonsense. Grow up. Grow up. It's disgusting. I'm sick and tired of the excuses. I'm sick and tired of these stories like they're war stories. You didn't go off and fight for no one else's freedom. You didn't go off and fight for anybody but your selfish self because you didn't want to listen. Yeah, some of you got caught up. But for you to come out and glorify it, and our young kids got to hear that message. You're supposed to grab the homie up and say, it's okay, young blood. You got caught up. But let me show you a different way. Let me show you how you can use those skills and be something better. Do something else better with those. Help your community. Don't disgrace your mom. Don't disgrace your dad. Find out who your dad is. Go talk to him. If he needs saving, help save him through your efforts. Do something positive. I'm sick of these jailhouse scholars. I really am. I'm okay with educating yourself and being humble about it and say, you know what, that was a mistake. They're not even willing to admit it was a mistake no more. It's a badge of honor. And we wonder why. We wonder why. We wonder why. It's not a badge of honor. And even though it's a mistake, it could be corrected and should not be perpetuated back into the community. Sometimes we take certain movements too far. So we become our oppressor's protege. Our oppressor can sit back, those who wish to see our demise, they can sit back and be proud of the programs they've implemented. And they can say, well done. Don't you have any pride? Don't you see beyond yourself into your children? And some of you are fooled enough to think that you are helping the children. It's because you have no guidance. It's all I'm self-made. I'm self-made. I did this for myself. Great. Now, where's your check and balance? You want to talk about our government? What about the government of you? Where's your check and balance? Who's checking you to make sure that the information that you're spewing is correct? Who are you consulting with to say, hey, you know what? Can you look over this and make sure this is spelled correctly, or that I'm doing this correctly, or the information that I gave is correct? No, it's I know I'm right because see I'm writing MF this and F that and using B and that. I can curse. I'm grown. If I want to curse, I can curse. But because my eyeballs are connected to my brain and I'm intelligent, I can see how my behavior affects other people. Always talking this metaphysics stuff. You ain't understood nothing. Nothing. I'm raising boys. I'm qualified. I'm raising boys to men. I'm qualified to say it. I had to live on the streets as a sister with you men, me being a young girl, coming up trying to seduce me, to get me pregnant, to be a nothing. 15, 16, 17, 18, grown men. Hey, baby girl. Hey, what's your name? Ain't want nothing because your uncle and brothers and lack of daddies told y'all that's what you're supposed to do. And then the girl's mind is so young, she's searching for attention because she missing that too. Oh, he's noticing me. He got a job, girl. He got a car. We keep perpetuating this madness. Symptoms of a greater problem. When you see a young brother popping off at the mouth like that, it's because he has a lack of guidance. And if someone is pretending to guide him, they're lying to them. And when he falls, they'll laugh or they'll turn their back because they lack guidance. Where is your check and balance, Mr. African spirituality? Mr. I love my people? Who did you run this information across? You want to bet bank accounts? I bet you didn't run it across those who put that time in. Those who went up against those who would have killed them for talking. What you know about that? Living in a time where people would have murked you for bringing the truth to the people. For daring to even sit in a space, for daring to ask for the same pay, the same money. Where were you? You talking about some stuff that's happened before you even was potty trained, birthed, thought of, haploid. But you running around talking about you know what's what. You ain't got no sense. You don't have any sense. And the first thing you'll do is say, well, how many followers you got? Are you the middle's missing? You talking about followers. Be a leader. If you were gracious enough to have people listen to you, be a leader, and then go ahead and do the analytics and break down who's listening to you and break down who is talking about what you're talking about. And how many white supremacists are following you laughing? They're not worried about you because you leading the people somewhere off. Even with this message, if you ever come across it, you still won't get it. You still not gonna understand. It'll be either delete or attack because you don't get it. You all stop following these people. Stop following these people. They don't mean you any good. They don't mean you any good. Stop following them. If you do choose to listen to them, get the information and extract from it what you can. As they say, eat the meat, spit out the bones. But stop following these people. They're selfish and self serving. All these battles I see with our brothers, I read throughout history. Same paradigm. Booker T and Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X and Farrakhan, Malcolm X and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We're letting them tear us apart. And we don't even see it. We're letting them create division between us. And we don't even see it. Who am I? Just a lowly person at the keyboard. Maybe I know what I'm talking about. Maybe I don't. But I know one thing. We are in no better position than we were 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, with the exceptions of small leaps and bounds and tokens who have made it through and broke through. Like the rice grains through a sifter. The majority of them are going to get caught up in that sifter. The sifter is tight enough. You see my eyeball? Can I see your shine? Working against each other. Not listening to the elders who have sacrificed and seen what's going on and had enough wisdom to show us and was able to break through, crack that glass ceiling. And all we did was took some gorilla glue and glue it back together. I wish we weren't so blind. I wish we weren't so divided. I wish we weren't so lost. I can wish it all I want to. The reality is that we are blind. We are misguided and we are lost. We're divided in our own households. We're divided inside of ourselves, which is what I was going to get to in this last couple of minutes. It's because of lack of knowledge of self. You can read all the books you want and know all of the repeat knowledge. In medical school, it's not the doctors that can regurgitate the knowledge because by the time they get to the residency in medical school, if they're not able to apply that biochemistry that they learn, doesn't matter. If they can't turn it into application, they will fail and they'll be weeded out. And they design a curriculum on purpose for that because they want the doers and not the talkers and regurgitators. They want the ones that can actually apply the knowledge. So I bring this information to you in hope that someone out there with the capability will hear this message and be able to make these brothers and sisters see the light. And another thing, brothers, you got to get balance. There's not enough sisters in the front in the conscious community. There's not enough sisters talking in the front. It's all of you all. You're bombarded. You're doing the same thing over and over again, whether you want to believe it or not. You're putting yourselves out front and you keep your sisters in the back. And you're not putting her out front to balance the knowledge. And you're arguing amongst each other like a bunch of warrior Neanderthals. I love you. And because I love you, I say it. I hope you can find the truth in it. Releasing the ego for the greater good. Thank you for welcoming me.